The American Philatelic Society is the nation's oldest and largest organization of stamp collectors. Among the many services provided to members are a monthly 100-page stamp journal, The American Philatelist, use of the largest public access philatelic library in the country, a sales division where members may buy and sell stamps among themselves with APS serving as agent, low-cost stamp insurance, expertising services, and a variety of educational offerings. For details, visit www.stamps.org. Please note, no portion of this program may be reproduced without the written permission of the Education Department, American Philatelic Society. The APS is pleased to make the audio-visual program library available to its many members, chapters, and affiliates. The library consists of over 100 titles, ranging from general interest or introductory to more specialized programs, including both U.S. and foreign. A listing is available on the APS website. Switzerland's 13 types of postal stationery has been prepared by the American Helvetia Philatelic Society, affiliate number 52 of the American Philatelic Society. The mission of the AHPS, a nonprofit tax-exempt educational organization, is to serve the philatelic community through programs that promote and advance the knowledge and collecting of Switzerland's stamps, postal history, and related literature. Its services include the bi-monthly journal, Tell, mail and online auctions, sales circuit books, audiovisual programs such as this one, annual national conventions, and special exhibit awards. Collectors of Switzerland's postal stationery have the distinct benefit of one of the best stationery catalogs in existence, the Zumstein Specialized Catalog and Handbook, shown here in its most recent 2010 edition. This catalog describes 13 different types of Swiss postal stationery, with imprinted stamp indicia and their varieties. Although written in German, it includes introductions in English and French and many illustrations, features that make it easy to use. It is your introduction to a huge field that includes interesting production methods, topical collecting, and postal history. The earliest postal stationery in Switzerland, however, was a postal envelope that the Canton or State of Geneva issued in 3 sizes in 1846, imprinted with a 5-centime indicium, similar in design to a current cantonal stamp. Since the public was in the habit of using 5-centime cantonal stamps reduced in price to 4 centimes, it was reluctant to accept these novel but more expensive envelopes. In 1849, the Cantonal Postal Administration permitted the public to cut out the indicium and paste it on a folded letter like an adhesive stamp. Surviving examples today are rare. Not until 1867 and 1868 did the new centralized Swiss Postal Department issue its first stationery, a series of 4 postal envelopes with denominations of 5 and 10 centimes for domestic use and 25 and 30 centimes for international use. By 1886, when it stopped issuing envelopes for many years, it had released 34 major varieties. The same design on all shows a dove above a cross on a shield, bracketed by 22 stars representing the number of Swiss cantons at that time. In Switzerland, these envelopes are called Dublibrief, Swiss dialect for a dove letter. When envelope production resumed in 2000, the Postal Department used modern cartoon characters for the indicia. At first, the Dublibrief featured a control mark, not a watermark, in the form of a dove carrying a letter, which was impressed into the paper after its production. 3 slightly different versions of the dove exist, depending on how the sheets of paper were stacked for cutting out the blank envelope forms and how an individual envelope form was then folded. The dove on the front of a finished envelope can be in 8 different positions. In the normal position, it is flying to the left. In 1874 and 1875, large ornate 5 and 10 numeral control marks replaced the dove on the 2 smaller denomination envelopes. Shortly after the introduction of the large 10, the wire used to impress it into the envelope paper broke and was not replaced. As a result, an envelope with this control mark is very rare. Instead, another new control mark replaced it, showing a Swiss cross encircled by 22 stars, and surrounded by 4 small 10s placed in the corners of an imaginary square. In 1879, a new paper supplier incorporated a watermark into the envelope paper-making process in place of the control marks. The watermark is an arabesque design with a central Swiss cross on a shield within a double-lined border, running diagonally from the lower left to the upper right of the envelope's front. Taking into account variations in the border lines, the arabesque, and the coat of arms, the catalog lists many varieties of this watermark. Other varieties during 1867 to 1886 involve a larger envelope size, the location of the imprinted stamp, the shape of the back flap, the embossed rosette on the flap, and different shades of the denomination colors. Envelope production errors include albino imprints of the indicia. When the operator of the flatbed press printed the envelopes one at a time, sometimes he placed 2 blank pre-folded envelope forms on the press by mistake, embossing the indicium on both, but color imprinting only the top one. If he noticed his mistake and placed the colorless form back on the press, it received the missing color, but also a second embossing. Albino envelopes like this one regularly slipped through the rest of the production sequence, in some cases even through the mail system. Postal envelopes with all-over advertising are another very eye-catching variety. The Postal Department authorized this official supplemental imprinting in 1870 to fulfill requests that it permitted from federal officials, federal departments, and private companies. The 2010 catalog lists only 14 that took advantage of this advertising opportunity, but more have been recorded since then. Alert collectors have a chance to find still more. Private businesses could also request another form of official supplemental imprinting, round or oval identifying seals in color printed in relief on the back flap of envelopes. In this case, too, the 2010 catalog list of 12 companies may be incomplete, so collectors with this special interest may find more. Before leaving the subject of postal envelopes, it is important to point out that these are very collectible with the addition of adhesive stamps as supplemental postage. Added stamps can turn this ordinary stationery into uncommon postal history covers, involving higher postage rates or special postal services. This postal envelope used for an express letter in 1872 bears a 30-centime supplemental postage stamp to pay the minimum fee for immediate express delivery service up to 1.2 kilometers or 15 minutes from the destination post office to the recipient's address. Switzerland issued its first postal card in 1870, 1 year after the world's first appeared in Austria. For the first indicium, the Postal Department used the same oval design it employed on its envelopes, then switched in 1873 to a very utilitarian design, retaining only the coat of arms and the denomination numeral. By the time it stopped using this second design in 1906, it had issued 32 definitive cards. Slight changes in the indicium had occurred in 1892, however, including a leaner Swiss cross to make its dimensions correct from a heraldic point of view. Regular changes did occur over the years in the texts for the 5-centime domestic cards and the 10-centime international cards. The 1888 to 1889 issue added phrases reading "for address only," printed up the left side in French, across the top in German, and down the right side in Italian, with more than one length for each phrase, resulting in 7 different combinations. In 1890, the printing date and printing total were added to the left corner of each card. The Postal Department introduced double reply-paid cards in 1874 for domestic use and in 1879 for international use. But both single and double cards had early restricted use in the international mails. Before the 1875 start of the Universal Postal Union, only 9 other postal administrations would accept Switzerland's single cards as a new form of correspondence. In the case of its double cards, other countries would receive them only on a voluntary basis until 1892, when the UPU finally made acceptance mandatory for all members. Breaking the tradition of conservative card designs were 2 1900 commemorative cards for the 25th anniversary of operations of the UPU, which was founded in the Swiss capital of Bern. The vignette on both cards shows an allegorical figure representing the UPU, surrounded by symbols of international communication. Another set of 2 cards with special designs in 1909 commemorated the dedication of the UPU monument in Bern that year to mark the 35th anniversary of the organization's founding. Beginning in 1907, contemporary stamp designs took over the indicia of Swiss cards, showing William Tell's son Walter, the bust of a symbolic Helvetia, and William Tell himself. These designs were the first to include the Latin name Helvetia to identify clearly the issuing postal administration. Over the years, the Postal Department revalued unused stocks of some of these cards and later ones when postage rates changed. The first William Tell indicium in 1914 is especially noteworthy because the crossbar of the H in Helvetia is normally nearer the top, as shown here, but in a few cases only halfway up the letter, creating a rare production variety. Beginning in 1912, some cards exist with perforations in 2 different forms. Those with perforations along the left edge have been removed from booklets, and those with perforations along the top and bottom edges have come from strips of 8 cards that typists could roll through office typewriters more quickly. Some examples with a low survival rate are very scarce. Another stylistic break occurred in 1923 when the first of several large numeral designs for the indicium ushered in sets of cards with drawn or photographed vignettes of town and country scenes. The subjects of the views on these so-called tourist cards paid to have their locations included. These sets, with as many as 100 different vignettes, dominated card production into the 1960s. Topical collectors can search for special subjects, such as this view of a postal bus on a mountain road. Note also the booklet perforations along the card's left side. In 1937, the Postal Department included, in one series of pictorial vignettes, 2 cards showing the left and right sides of a new mobile post office bus, first placed in service that year to handle large volumes of mail at special events. Later that year it added this special card incorporating a picture of this temporary or emergency post office in the indicium. All three cards were on sale only at the mobile post office during its assignments throughout the country. Series of related cards were also issued with different vignettes to commemorate special events: the Swiss National Exhibition in 1939, objects in the Swiss Post, Telegraph, and Telephone Museum during 1941 to 1958, here the centenary of the Swiss railroads in 1947, and the centenary of the Swiss Federal Post in 1949. Recent issues of 1 to 3 cards have celebrated special places, anniversaries, and events. Although many of Switzerland's 13 postal stationery categories are dead, it continues to add to its some 3,000 collectible card varieties. Falling into the postal card group are many forms of advertising that businesses privately added to promote their products. Probably foremost was the chocolate manufacturer Suchard, which printed dozens of backside textual and pictorial vignettes of chocolate-related recipes and chocolate-eating children. To promote the widespread distribution of its personalized cards, the company even printed lower card prices on the backs of some and offered to resell them to the public at quantity discounts. As with postal envelopes, supplemental postage can turn ordinary postal cards into much more desirable items of postal history. For a domestic cash collection notice in 1880, the sender chose a 10-centime international card and added 4 adhesive stamps, worth another 45 centimes. This 55-centime total paid the 5-centime domestic card postage, and the 50-centime fee for a postman to collect 41 francs and 50 centimes from the recipient, which the post office turned over to the sender. This special service helped periodicals to collect payments for subscriptions and advertisements, societies to collect annual dues, and businesses to collect all types of outstanding bills. In a third category of postal stationery are those service cards that several government branches used with indicia instead of stampless indications of prepaid fees. Most prominent among these are railway freight arrival notices, which recipients took to their local stations to collect their goods. Many of these cards issued from 1912 to 1968 illustrate railway freight handling operations through a series of vignettes. Cards with indicia overprinted IKW for Industrielle Kriegswirtschaft were used by the Industrial War Economy section of the federal government at the end of World War I. Other service cards came from several parts of the Swiss PTT's administration of the posts, telephones, and telegraphs that needed to communicate with their customers. The indicia on all of these service cards repeated contemporary adhesive stamp designs. Other examples of official stationery cannot be called postal, strictly speaking, since they required no postage payments and had no indicia. Falling into this category are envelopes and cards for use by military personnel. The earliest date from the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871, when the Swiss army mobilized to prevent the war from spilling over the Swiss border. Beginning in 1891, the Postal Department has occasionally approved supplemental printing on existing postal cards by private committees observing special events. These cards, making up a fourth stationery category, are considered semi-official in nature. This one in 1898 celebrated the 100th anniversary of the independence of Canton Vaud from Canton Bern, with a silhouette of Lausanne, its capital, added across the front of an 1892 postal card. The anniversary committee used 6 different colors for the additional printing. In 1905, the figure of an Italian tunnel digger was added to the same 1892 postal card for the dedication of the Simplon Railway Tunnel. Additional text was added a year later for the tunnel's opening. Together, the two versions are known in 7 different colors. Among other notable semi-official cards are 2 commemorative cards from 1914 for the centennial of Canton Geneva's entry into the Swiss Confederation. In this case, the Postal Department let a private committee add 10 different historical scenes to the picture sides of both cards. National festival cards, called Bundeswehr cards, have always been listed separately from other Swiss postal cards because of their special nature as fundraisers for charitable causes, such as the fight against tuberculosis, aid to the blind, or help for victims of natural disasters. From 1910 to 1937, cards in this 5th stationery category, with prices higher than their face values, were issued in observance of August 1st celebrations. This is the annual date on which the Swiss honor the 1291 founding of the Helvetic Confederation, when the cantons of Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden declared a pact of mutual assistance against the tyrannical Austrian officials. On the backs of the Bundeswehr cards are 85 colorful scenes by different artists, showing military battles, historic personages, patriotic observances, family life, and those in need. On one of the 1923 cards is a picture of a large bonfire on a mountain peak on the night of August 1st. This annual tradition of bonfires throughout the country recreates the way the early Swiss communicated in times of emergency. All cards canceled on August 1st are worth a premium over those used on other dates. One area of specialization is to collect the Bundeswehr cards issued in 1928 through 1931 with 25 centime and 40 centime airmail indicia for special flights that took place on August 1st in those years. Either 8 or 9 departure airports were used in each of the 4 years, with very few cards carried from some of the airports, so collecting a complete set of these flown cards can be a challenge. A 6th form of Swiss postal stationery is the lowly wrapper band for printed matter. The first indicium, containing a large numeral under a cross, also includes the date 20/3/71 for March 20, 1871. This is a reference to the day when the Postal Department decided to produce prepaid bands. To accommodate printed matter of different sizes, it produced 2 centime and 5 centime bands in small, medium, and large formats. At first, these wrapper bands were sold on an experimental basis in only a few post offices. By the time wrapper bands were available in all post offices in 1873, their new indicium design was identical to that on the second postal card issued that same year. This design continued in use on 16 different bands through the issue of 1902, with changes in color, paper types, and band widths. Prices to the public included a surtax to help cover production costs. The Postal Department next adopted the designs of current adhesive stamps for its wrapper bands as it had for its postal cards, beginning in 1907 with the Tell Boy and in 1921 with William Tell himself. Some of these bands were later revalued or sold at higher or lower prices with both the new face values or new purchase prices printed right on or under the original indicia. The final design for the wrapper bands was the Edelweiss, the Swiss national flower that grows at high alpine elevations. This flower appeared on 4 bands from 1938 to 1959, bringing Switzerland's bands to a total of 54. Although production stopped in 1960, these 4 are still valid for use without restrictions. Post offices replace them with bands that have no stamp impressions. As in the case of postal cards, users of postal bands took advantage of opportunities to promote their businesses, even more so since the bands offered larger printing surfaces, providing the space for especially elaborate illustrated advertisements, such as this one for a manufacturer of clothes hangers. Wrapper bands also become more interesting when users have added supplemental postage to pay for higher postage rates or special postal services. For heavy international printed matter, the sender added a 5 centime adhesive stamp to this 5 centime wrapper band to pay the postage of 5 centimes per 40 grams to Austria, the rate in effect before the Universal Postal Union. The crayon notations point out 65 grams and the second weight level, creating the need for 2 times 5 centimes. Money order forms were another very early type of Swiss postal stationery. The postal department charged different fees for different amounts of money to be dispatched, but at first it used stampless envelopes without imprinted denominations. The fees duplicated those for insured letters with declared values based on distance. This domestic money order envelope for 80 francs required a 60 centime fee. To replace the cumbersome system involving envelopes, the Postal Department switched to special money order forms with indicia from 1867 to 1905. They fall into a seventh category of postal stationery. On the backs of the forms were printed instructions on how to use them and the scale of fees for different amounts of money to be dispatched, ranging up to a maximum of 500 francs. This 20 centime form represents the minimum payable fee for up to 100 francs. The Postal Department issued in all 45 forms with indicia for domestic use and another 24 for international use. When the Postal Department expanded the money order system in 1876 to accept up to a maximum of 1,000 francs, it did not revise the old forms. Since the indicia were denominated only up to 60 centimes for 500 francs, postal clerks were allowed to add supplemental adhesive stamps to help pay the new higher fees up to 120 centimes. In this case, the highest fee paid for 975 francs. After 1905, similar forms without indicia were issued, and the full fees were paid with adhesive stamps. In an eighth stationery category is a service that employed special money collection envelopes. From 1875 to 1891, a series of 6 envelopes imprinted with a 50 centime indicium was available. They varied in the style of type for the text or in the arrangement of the text. A user placed documents or receipts inside one of these envelopes, and the post office collected cash for him on delivery of the contents to the recipient. The last envelope was replaced with a stampless version requiring the use of adhesive stamps to pay the service charge. Postal receipts sold during 1899 to 1916 with a 5 centime indicium make up a 9th stationery category. The first indicium resembled the contemporary postal card indicium, and the last 5 resembled the contemporary tell-boy adhesive stamp. On each receipt, the post office recorded the declared value of a mailing and the amount of money, if any, to be collected from the recipient. These receipts are headed Empfangschein in German, Récépissé in French, and Ricevuta in Italian. Receipts printed before and after these included no indicium. A 10th category of Swiss postal stationery comprises letter sheets. The first was pre-folded into an envelope shape to commemorate a national exposition in Bern in 1914. A set of 4 used the Tell Boy, William Tell, and Helvetia with sword designs of concurrent adhesive stamps as the 5, 10, or 25 centime indicium. The front of the folded envelopes included a cachet publicizing the exposition. Each envelope cost 5 centimes more than the amount of its face value. A second letter sheet was pre-folded with a double card shape to commemorate a 1939 National Exposition in Zurich. All three in this set bear the image of a special 20 centime adhesive stamp that publicized the exposition, but with a different language inscription, German, French, or Italian. Photographed exposition scenes on the fronts of the cards create 18 different cards to be collected. Another type of pre-folded letter sheets for aerograms make up an 11th stationery category. Switzerland issued only 3 for use during 1962 to 1971, all distinguished by the same triangular 65 centime indicium showing jets in flight, but different in the color of the paper or the location of the printed space for the return address. The price of each letter sheet was also 5 centimes more than the amount on its indicium. In 1998, a fourth aerogram finally appeared as a companion piece to a joint adhesive stamp issued by Switzerland and China. International reply coupons constitute a 12th category of Swiss postal stationery. The U.S. recipient of a coupon from a correspondent in Switzerland can turn one in at his local post office for enough postage to pay for a reply letter. The Universal Postal Union authorized the first coupon in 1907, and new or revised ones as the price of an international letter went up. A total of 70 have become available in Switzerland according to the 2010 catalog, as new figures of value in numerous varieties were printed or overprinted, and as changes occurred in the design and instructional text on how to use the coupons. By far the largest field for collectors of Swiss postal stationery is a 13th category, the stamped to private order group. In 1907, the Postal Department announced that it would imprint current stamp designs on all types of private stationery that already bore the imprinted name of the company, organization, or individual user. It accepted more than 20,000 printing orders, initially for a minimum of 500 imprints, and later for 250, until it decreed in 1930 that postage meter imprinting would replace stamp imprinting. At first it printed only indicia that duplicated this cross and numeral design of 1906, but eventually a total of 47 definitive stamp designs and 2 airmail stamp designs. As postage rates increased, some users resubmitted their stationery for a second or more stamp imprints. Others submitted their stationery for stamp imprints that would pay for specific combinations of charges for certain types of mailings, such as this envelope with 3 centime domestic printed matter postage and 15 centime registration fee. Private orders included every conceivable type of stationery, including postal money order forms, delivery receipts for court documents, and gummed address labels. Used examples of 3 imprinted stamps on the same envelope are very scarce, and 4 are a rarity. This rare example bears the only catalogued combination of 4 imprinted stamps used on any type of Swiss postal stationery. The total of 20 centimes postage paid for a letter going more than 10 kilometers in 1933. There are only 3 recorded examples of this combination, all on envelopes used by August Amsler, who held the rank of secretary at the Swiss Postal Administration's headquarters in Bern. Very infrequently, users of the printed to private order service submitted leftover postal envelopes issued from 1867 to 1886. but only after they printed or hand-stamped their names on the envelopes. This final image brings us full circle back to the very first type of stationery that Switzerland issued in 1867. This survey of the 13 types of Swiss postal stationery has been an overview of a subject that offers many opportunities for building specialized collections. For new collectors of Switzerland, whether young or old, the American Helvetia Philatelic Society has published a 350-page book entitled Philately of Switzerland, an Introductory Handbook. It contains 32 chapters on Swiss stamps and postal history, color illustrations, literature lists, and collecting tips. You can order the book and get Helvetia membership information from the Society's secretary at P.O. Box 15053, Asheville, North Carolina 28813-0053, or at www.swiss-stamps.org. We believe that Switzerland can fulfill all your philatelic desires. We hope you have enjoyed this APS multimedia program prepared by the American Helvetia Philatelic Society. APS welcomes your comments on this presentation and your ideas on topics for future programs. If you know of any outstanding collection, suitable topic, or existing program of another society that would make an interesting program, please contact us. Do so also if you would like more information about other available programs. Write to us at Education Department, APS 100, Match Factory Place, Bellefonte, PA 16823.